It's too early to tell if the Twitter files will be the story of the century or just last week's news. Either way, it's great that Elon Musk and journalist Matt Taibbi are exposing how officials within the Democrat Party helped suppress the Hunter Biden laptop story on Twitter back in October 2020, which probably affected the outcome of the election. They also suppressed it on Facebook, and I remember since I had both my Twitter and Facebook account frozen for a day after trying to share the New York Post article that they were trying to claim was hacked materials. Not to mention, I had one of my videos of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris also taken down from YouTube, but that's nothing in comparison to the amount of people who've had their Twitter and Facebook accounts and even entire YouTube channels removed with no chance of reinstatement. This is almost communist level censorship. Though since these are private companies, they are allowed to do so, but they are in collusion with the government. So that's where lines get blurred. Now, as of the making of this video, there's a series of tweets called the Twitter Files being posted by Matt Taibbi. They're numbered 1 through 36 last time I checked, so you can follow the trail of information. It goes to show how higher-ups at Twitter, such as Vijaya Gadde, who served as Twitter's general counsel, communicated directly with Democrat Congress members like Ro Khanna regarding the suppression of the Hunter Biden laptop story. To Ro Khanna's credit, he actually said this could be a violation of the First Amendment. At one point, even White House Press Secretary Kylie McEnany's Twitter account was temporarily suspended also. At this point, it's impossible to measure how that censorship affected the outcome of the 2020 election, which is why Donald Trump had some reason to believe the election was rigged or stolen from him. However, terms like rigged and stolen are clumsy words and phrasing coming from a president of the United States. This is why I don't agree that the election was entirely stolen, since Donald Trump proved to be his own worst enemy by losing the 2020 election that he could have won. Maybe not by a landslide, but by a healthy margin, had he just shown a little bit of restraint and common decency that we need to see from our leaders, particularly during that first debate that he had with Joe Biden. And this is most certainly why Donald Trump thought he could convince Mike Pence to illegally turn over the Electoral College votes on January 6th. That alone shows the absolutely horrible judgment by Trump and why, in my opinion, he should not be president again. He's either too ignorant about how some of the most basic functions of our government work, or he simply doesn't care, or a combination of the two. I was wondering if it was even worth making a video about this, considering my YouTube channel is a speck of dust with only 34 subscribers as of posting this video. There's no way I'm going to get the views that someone like Tucker Carlson has been getting by covering the same subject, especially with interviewing legendary actor James Woods, who was so negatively affected by the censorship and the Democrat National Committee. And that's why he's claiming to be filing a class action lawsuit against the DNC. But there were a couple things I found disturbing about James Woods' interview with Tucker Carlson, especially when Tucker Carlson said this about Alex Jones.
Well, it is astonishing. As you just pointed out, civil law is used extensively by the left to really crush people on the right. Alex Jones just had $1 billion settlement against him because he said something that he didn't hurt anybody. He said something people didn't like.
I also found it very troubling to hear James Woods say this about liberals.
I was blocked on Twitter for 8 months. You know what I was suspended for? Quoting Ralph Waldo Emerson. Can you imagine? That's how crazy these people are. And one of the things that I said on Twitter once that has become kind of a meme, scratch a liberal and you'll find a fascist every time.
Yes.
Let me tell you, these Democrats, and now I can say it because they are now my enemy. They declared this, not me. But when they go around calling everybody, oh, this one's a fascist and so on. You know what the fascists are? Scratch a liberal and you will find a fascist every time. Every time.
This is how political tribalism fuels the very censorship we're fighting against that leads to disinformation and ultimately a dangerous division in our country. As for Alex Jones not hurting anybody, that's absolutely false. The harm caused to the parents of the murdered children at Sandy Hook, that can be easily documented through the death threats that the parents received from mentally unstable fans of Alex Jones' show, and the fact that some of those parents actually had to move several times to avoid the danger. that's no longer freedom of expression. When you are deliberately disinforming people, that already falls under libel, slander, defamation, and just outright lies. And it's absolutely unhealthy to put out an idea that you scratch a liberal and you'll find a fascist. More than enough people consider themselves just as liberal as conservative because they understand there's a time and place for both. And this is why on my tiny channel, I'd like to point out something you won't hear on most other YouTube channels, let alone mainstream media outlets. It is very possible to be both liberal and conservative depending on the issue. But what no one really needs to be is either a Democrat or a Republican. You don't have to be a member of either party to vote in this country. We have such a dangerous divide in this country that usually flares up during midterm and especially presidential election years. And the last one in 2020 was exceptionally horrible as hundreds of riots caused dozens of people to needlessly die over a false narrative about the death of George Floyd. And that false narrative being that he was killed by a white supremacist police officer, when in actuality a significant contributing factor to George Floyd's death was having taken a lethal amount of fentanyl. And those riots were encouraged and to a certain degree even financially supported by many members of the Democrat Party, with congressional representatives and even Kamala Harris helping set up funds to bail out many of the rioters, especially in cities such as Portland and Seattle, where the needless damage to those cities by Antifa and Black Lives Matter is almost irreparable. The Twitter files, January 6th, and the 2020 riots are some of the worst examples of just how bad our political divide gets when we actually have more in common than not. And it's not just the DNC that's to blame. It's also many conservatives and political pundits like Tucker Carlson that fuel the fire. And it's hard to tell to what degree they do it for ratings or because they're just as driven by partisan ideology and religion, just as much as Antifa and Black Lives Matter rioters have turned their horrendously misguided ideology into a new age religion. We'll see just how impactful the Twitter files story is in the days to come. However, I fear that people who should be arrested or simply brought before Congress to testify, none of that's going to happen. And anyone who thinks Joe Biden is going to be impeached, I don't think that's going to happen either, though I really hope I'm wrong. But what I really hope most people will get out of the Twitter files is to stop being so tribal about politics. Stop assuming you have to live up to the label of a liberal or a conservative, and much less a diehard Democrat or a religious Republican. We especially need to get past the idol worship of people like Donald Trump, who's now suggesting we should have a new election because a fraud of this magnitude allows for the termination of all rules, regulations, and articles, even those found in the Constitution. That is just as much out of the playbook of a communist or fascist dictatorship as Twitter's censorship. This is how we lose perspective and balance and ultimately our democracy and freedom. We really need to get over our political tribalism and cult-like worship of personalities that creates the opportunity for the censorship that becomes disinformation that leads to dictatorships. And at that point, it doesn't matter whether the censorship is from the left or the right. We'll be screwed from either direction. If I got anything wrong in this video, please let me know in the comments below. But if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell for upcoming videos, check out the links below for my original art and merchandise, and thanks for watching.